Hello everyone, my name is Blue Lin, and on behalf of my co-authors, I'm super excited to present this work on menstrual tracking inclusiveness. I am currently a graduate student at University of Toronto, and this work was carried out while I was a master's student at Georgia Tech. Thank you, Kai, for this opportunity. In this work, we took a mixed methods approach to achieve a few goals for menstrual tracking, which is the method to keep record of when one menstruates and other information related to gendered health. We first examine menstrual tracking inclusiveness and usage through the cultural backgrounds of the participants, such as through menstrual stigma and the environments they grew up in, access to menstrual health resources, education levels, etc. We then highlight those with minimal menstrual education backgrounds as a population with nuanced tracking needs that has had minimal discussion thus far. Finally, we provide insights for designing culturally responsive menstrual tracking solutions for the hopeful future. So in examining menstrual tracking designs, it requires a multidisciplinary understanding as the technological and socio-political landscape these technologies find roots in are quite expansive. I will only cover them at a high level here in the interest of time. So the first is gendered HCI. Gendered HCI covers a variety of topics, from women's health to feminist methodologies. At its core is a need to regain holistic views of human diversity, empathy, and promote historically marginal voices. So along the same lines, we use the term gendered HCI here in lieu of women's health as a way of acknowledging that not all individuals impacted by menstrual, sexual, and or reproductive health topics identify as women. The second is health informatics. One of the key points is that voluntary self-tracking can help promote better health outcomes and self-awareness. In understanding holistic health, we turn to previous work on cultural responsiveness to understand how the relationships, economic systems, environments in which people live in are closely tied to what they deem important and a value. Finally, menstrual tracking research itself has seen some major contributions in the last few years. Many of them have highlighted gaps in current technologies, especially in terms of accuracy and inclusiveness. To expand on previous work and how we might provide some more color at the intersections of the previously mentioned fields, we took a mixed methods approach of conducting survey, interviews, and participatory design workshops. We first started out with a survey to understand users' perception of current menstrual tracking technologies. The survey was open to all adults and asked questions about their menstrual and tracking experiences, as well as any experience they had sharing or tracking for others. On analyzing the survey responses, we identified several areas we wanted to explore further, including motivations behind tracking, how menstrual tracking data is shared with others, and pain points of current tracking methods. From the survey demographics, we also observed that many people who engage with menstrual tracking were between the ages of 20 and 30 and grew up in environments with minimal access to menstrual education. And this minimal access entailed having only taken at most one menstrual health class. Those that had taken classes before still expressed that the classes did not prepare them for their first period and or future menstrual cycles. With this group in mind, we designed and conducted 18 semi-structured interviews with menstruators who self-reported themselves as having minimal menstrual education. Interviews cover similar topics to the questionnaire, but allowed participants to elaborate on their thoughts and go more in depth about their upbringings and backgrounds, such as growing up in areas where sexual conservatism was prevalent. Drawing from the interviews, we conducted a participatory design workshop with 7 current menstrual trackers. During the workshop, we asked participants to design together an ideal menstrual tracker with any of the functionality they wanted, including the kinds of information it could track or the information it could provide them. The designs the participants came up with were a calendar that changed its color based on where they were in their cycle and symptoms they entered, and a wearable smartwatch with physiological sensors that collected data that could be visualized into interpretable trends, such as which menstrual symptoms occurred most often and how often they had skips in cycles. For analysis in each of these methods, we open-coded discussions and scripts. We then organize all the codes into affinity diagrams for common themes. From our analysis, we found 6 core design implications. The first is the lack of culturally responsive design for marginalized groups. Echoing findings from previous work, we observed that the participants in our study found current methods to lack functionality for marginalized groups, as well as varied menstrual experiences. We also saw discrepancies between sense-making expectations and realities. So, for example, participants thought entering data alone might help them discern menstrual health illnesses or differences between cycles when going back through historical data. However, this was usually a confusing and arduous process, and they voiced issues from not knowing how to decipher their historical data, non-existent representation of trends, and non-existent summaries. When their tracking needs also evolved, their solution also did not accommodate for that either. We also saw very nuanced needs around sharing data. Almost all of the participants were simultaneously interested in sharing their data and keeping their data a secret. So, however, these interests varied depending on who the party was, the type of data in question, and even the timing of the menstrual tracking. As we mentioned in our methods, we spoke to a population with minimal menstrual education who also experienced potentially a sexually conservative upbringing. Many of them talked about traumatic first periods, such as thinking that they were dying when they first started bleeding because neither school nor their parents had told them anything beforehand. Many of them had also never spoken to medical professionals about their periods at length, even if they thought their periods were irregular. However, they did want to learn more. Participants in our participatory design sessions revealed a demand for readily available, accessible, and free menstrual health education sources. So, for example, they wish to gather insight about their cycles from forums with people with similar stories, or to send data to medical professionals without ever needing to leave their home. Participants also wanted to feel control through tracking. They equated every entry as a way of anticipating characteristics about their cycles, such as timing. Many realized they felt comfort just from entering the data, even when the expected insights weren't provided. This sometimes resulted in dire effects when participants put off medical visits because their app had yet to tell them that they may have a menstrual health condition that may need redressing, even if they were made aware that their app did not provide such functionality. Participants also called for innovation in tracking designs in the form of ubiquity, ease of incorporation into routine life, data visualization, and automated physiological data collection. Many mentioned that wearables and smart home devices could make recording and understanding their menstrual health easier. With our findings in mind, we provide 3 broad design recommendations for the hopeful future of menstrual trackers. The first would be for designers to factor in how menstrual tracking might account for a diversity of cultural backgrounds and menstrual experiences. The second would be to provide support and more functionality for users who might want to draw insight from the data that they enter. So, for example, this could be through visualizing log data into trends or forums for menstrual health discussions. Also, it is important to not forget use cases where individuals might change their reason for tracking, whether it be for prediction of period length to prediction of menstrual symptoms. Finally, we conclude with a recommendation to explore how ubiquitous technologies that are unobtrusive and afford ease of routine integration might be incorporated into future designs, with the caveat that they must also be private and secure. That ends my presentation. Thank you very much, and we would love to address any of your questions.